the 9th day of November 2022. I'm going to be your host, Dana Durnford, also known as the Nuclear Proctologist.org. You can call in at 709-589-4406 if you want to join the conversation. Hope everybody had a great day. We got oodles and oodles of naughty nuke tart news to get through tonight. We're not going to waste a minute. We're going to need those minutes, so let's get after it. I noticed my merchandise shop is not showing up on my video anymore, or retroactively. All of them were removed, but the store is on my front page. Now, they did update YouTube, and I went and redone everything to sync up with YouTube, but I don't see it showing up on my end. Did you know that the International Atomic Energy Agency's job is to murder you and your friends and your families and your loved ones and the species on the planet? That's their actual job. Might sound incredible if you're not familiar with this topic, but here you have a famous celebrity playing guitar inside a nuclear power plant. Whoopee. Just wow. Can you imagine how pathetic you are when you have to find musicians and claim that this is something special? The truth is the most special thing you'll ever come across, by the way, and you won't hear that from the nuclear industry. Accumulations of radionuclides by plants. So then they know that farms suck up radiation and poison the people that eat it. So is that why they build almost every single one of their nuclear power plant in the middle of farmland? They know that tomato plants suck up radiation. They have studies on just about everything you can imagine when it comes to food, and every one of them shows the same thing, that radiation is sucked up by the food and ends up poisoning everybody who eats it. So potatoes. Do you think it's a coincidence that all these nuclear power plants worldwide are built in prime active farmland? Do you think they're not trying to poison you in your supermarkets and your restaurants and everywhere else? And your cupboards and your fridges are being destroyed with radioactive food for around 70 years. They've been doing this to you. Do you know fruit trees uptake radiation? Probably one of the scariest pictures imaginable is a playground set with a nuclear disease factory in the background. All nuclear power plants, fuel pools are hemorrhaging. Massive hemorrhage every second of every minute of every hour of every day. They're still splitting the atoms. You take the reactor cores out that would power 1 million homes. They put it in the fuel pool. The fuel pool has no containment, and it's still splitting the atom into the environment. The same amount of atoms as it would take to boil water for 1 million homes is now released directly into the community. And every year there's more reactor cores, fuel rods put in those pools. They boil off about 120 tons of lethal water a day into your farms, because that's all nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. That's some kind of super evil, folks. You're supposed to go to war against this. You have a moral obligation to at least speak out about the genocide and that is going on with these farms. They have hundreds of millions of studies worldwide showing how stupid it is But yeah, all nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms as far as you can see. Total accident, Dana. All of the fuel pools are hemorrhaging. And this is long after they closed, they'll be doing the same thing into your environment. Canada has tax credits for clean technology that include nuclear. Make Canada more sustainable and more prosperous for generations to come by giving them green bonds. It's so evil, it just doesn't seem to be real. No, nobody could be this evil. But absolutely everybody in the nuclear industry seems to revel in being evil. The news released announcing the statement did not mention nuclear energy. But in the 96-page document, nuclear is briefly mentioned. The establishment of an investment tax credit for 30% on top of that for investments in clean technology. Nuclear is not clean technology. It can never be. It's a genocide machine. It's an omnicide machine. It proposes a refundable tax credit equal to 30% of the capital costs. In other words, if they invest $3 million, they get almost or $3 billion, they get $1 billion back out of your pocket. So you're going to pay them to poison you for the rest of your life and your children and your loved ones and your communities. Small modular reactors. We have a poll tonight about those stupid, disgusting things that don't even exist. Are small modular reactors meant to destroy the implementation of cheap, clean, efficient, renewable energy? Of course, that's exactly what it is. Small modular reactors don't exist, but clean, cheap, renewable energy does. And you have all kinds of places in Canada, everywhere else, signing memorandums of understandings. They'll take a small modular reactor over everything else. Despite the fact that last year there was 291 gigawatts of renewables came online. It was 0.04 gigawatts of nuclear. So there was over 333 large nuclear plants where the renewables came online compared to half a nuclear power plant. There's such evil people. We've been at this for so many years. We've never caught them being good people a single time. Additionally, eligible technologies like large-scale nuclear, not just small but large, disease factories. If they can find the farmland to put it in to make sure they can poison you. It also includes up to $1.26 billion over 6 years for the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. There is no safety commission anywhere in the entire nuclear industry worldwide. To increase their capacity, improve their efficiency. If they're not efficient and have the capacity after 80 years, then what's the point of them existing? The idea is just to steal everything so you can't have a future. To destroy renewables by a fabled unicorn known as the small modular reactors. Canadian Nuclear Agency has been saying for years that nuclear is clean energy. Well, that just because they've been saying it don't mean it's true. There's lots of serial killers in jail saying they're innocent despite the overwhelming documentation that they're nothing but homicidal maniacs. And that's exactly what the nuclear industry is. It's a homicidal and omnicidal maniac. U.S. warns Australia against joining treaty banning nuclear weapons. They got somebody grimacing their teeth there in the picture. Nice picture. warning Australia not to oppose the nuclear industry in the United States. Austria digs in its anti-nuclear heels as neighbors build out. Austria anti-nuclear. Instead of being pro-life and smart and using renewables, they're anti-nuclear. If you're not sucking up the nuclear, you're anti-nuclear. You can't be a human, you can only be anti-nuclear. And what do you expect from the European media, the disgusting media? Austria in Europe, most fervent anti-nuclear country. Most fervent well, why are they anti-nuclear? Because they don't want to be poisoned? And its only nuclear power plant never entered operation due to heavy opposition because it's evil. And Vienna is now suing the European Commission for granting a green label, which is Europe granted out of 600 people, over 50% claim nuclear was green. Every single one of them knows it's not. There's just so much corruption because of the nuclear industry. You can't exist unless in this parliaments unless you're corrupt almost. To the EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy, which was created for renewables, not for shit, garbage nuclear, disgusting disease factories like nuclear. The anti-nuclear stance, the pro-life stance against neighboring polluting nuclear countries will continue to be developed, said Green Environment Minister. Again, they got to put a label on you. You can't have a conversation. If you oppose nuclear, they got 100 labels for you. They completely captured your medias worldwide and your universities and key positions in your government. And the only opposition to nuclear outside of random people like myself is controlled oppositions like Greenpeace and Beyond Nuclear, which is pro-nuclear as they actually get. Anti-nuclear Austrian towns are now threatening to take the matter to the streets via protest. Threatening. That's a threat, see? Protest of nuclear is considered a threat. It sounds stupid, but we will have to take to the streets again to raise awareness and make a difference, the mayor added. Can you imagine what kind of stupid you got to be pro-nuclear? How gullible you actually got to be to even consider nuclear when the evidence shows this is an idiot machine? Not anybody useless, disgusting idiot machine. That's nuclear. Designed to destroy everything and everybody. The World Economic Forum giving out their marching orders for the idiotic Constipated Party 27 now. This is a fake United Nations scam to trick and deceive the entire population of the planet into nuclear. There is a couple of revelations I found rather interesting today. That the IAEA has never publicly been on a pavilion at Constipated Parties. I call it the Constipated Parties, right? COP's 27. Conference of Parties. There is no Conference of Parties. It's all controlled opposition. Every single one of them. No dissent allowed. And this year, just to make sure, they put it in Egypt. The nuclear fusion heat pump nexus could solve our winter woes. Nuclear fusion doesn't exist, World Economic Forum scum. You can't say it's going to solve winter woes when it doesn't even exist. And everybody agrees it's 50 years away. They're such lowlifes. And they're very powerful lowlifes on top of that. In key positions. I see we're censored heavily again tonight. 13 votes. Our despicable, disgusting, useless, stupid small modular reactors meant to destroy the implementations of cheap, clean, and efficient renewable energy? 93% says yes. Somebody actually said no. There's actually somebody out there. Obviously, they must have made a mistake. Obviously, they made a mistake. 93%. Crazy nuclear, that's what you get. United Nations Climate Change Conference. United Nations. It used to be the League of Nations. And if you think they're United Nations, go ask North Korea who United Nations really is. They burnt down every building, every house in North Korea. Collective punishment against the most vulnerable, against the children. That's what the United Nations legacy is. And then put land, sea, and air embargoes against them for 70 years because they wouldn't bow down and kiss the ring. 70 years of isolation. If someone locked you up in your house for 70 years because you wouldn't lick their boots, how would you feel? And all the media in the world, North Korea's going to get you. Oh, North Korea's going to get you. Why, they're out there blowing up country after country after country in America and the United States and that. And telling you to worry about North Korea. Such scum in the media, isn't it? Such disgusting, pathetic scum in the media. There's no media. There's this disgusting parasite that calls itself a media. We've never seen any redeeming qualities in the so-called scumbag media. And the World Economic Forum claiming heat pumps that are going to be cheap and abundant because of nuclear fusion that doesn't even exist. It has no hope of existing and no realistic reason to exist when renewables can curb stomp them in the 12-month period. Anything nuclear can do, renewables can do around 400% better and 12 years sooner. Nuclear fusion power edges from fantasy to reality. It's from the Financial Times. It's pointless. Their whole ideology is promoting disease factories known as nuclear. Nuclear fusion, by the way, 50 years, they still haven't got anywhere with it. They got all kinds of private investors throwing money at it, and they're no closer than they were 50 years ago. They're working on a design from 1904 because nobody can come up with their own design. It's stupid. It's meant to take away from the renewable renaissance. I just absolutely despise their ability to destroy everybody's future for something that don't exist. When there's tons and tons and tons of options with renewables that do exist, that are easy to implement, that are cheap and clean and efficient. And they've all been stymied by the despicable, cowardly, idiot machine in suits known as the nuclear industry. U.S. renewable growth put them on par with shitty nuclear. Nuclear is nothing but a disgusting betrayal to our planet. Speaking of stupid, look what Saskatchewan, Ontario got. Their fabled nuclear small modular reactors is like a half an ice cream container turned upside down. Literally the ugliest design imaginable. Literally the stupidest design I've ever seen is the appropriately the Canadian fabled small modular reactors that don't exist. What a scumbag industry, really. What a scumbag. What a disgusting industry. Yeah, what a disgusting, pointless, useless, idiotic industry. It's like an ice cream container cut in two and flipped upside down. It has the peel of a shit bucket you use out in the ocean or something. Tomorrow, folks in Central Butte and area will be able to voice their opinions about the upcoming small modular reactor projects that don't exist. You can't build something that don't exist. Hang on. I mean, look at this. Are small modular reactors meant to destroy the implementations of clean, green, cheap, efficient, renewable energy? And sure enough, we got two idiots there that voted no. How the hell can anybody be so stupid as to vote no? How does that actually work? They're going to have meetings where people can voice their opinion about small modular reactors, and the problem is it doesn't even exist. Because they just throw everything at the nuclear industry, and there's no room for anybody else on the planet to exist. And these are disease factories. They're going to produce 35% more intermediate level waste, 30 times more high level waste, and 5 times more fuel rods than a conventional disease factory would. They don't exist. Did I mention that? There's no hope of them exist. There's no need for them to exist. Joel Cherry, a Saskatchewan spokesperson, invites people to come out and learn about the small modular reactors that don't exist and looks like an ice cream bucket turned upside down. It's so ugly. Why would you want to build one of them in your country? Their entire legacy is predicated upon being scumbags. Being useless, degenerate scumbags. That's all we see from the nuclear industry. Gone are the days of massive cooling towers. Yeah, but you still got and Homer Simpson's workplace. You gotta hate these people for their... Because Homer Simpson was created to trick and manipulate your children and yourselves in increments over decades into becoming complacent about nuclear. And it's been extremely, unbelievably efficient. Look, I'm not doing what I'm doing because I'm bored and don't have nothing better to do in a normal world. I got tons of things I would love to do. But because nobody's out opposing the nuclear industry appropriately, I just hate the pro-nuclear. And they pretend they're anti-nuclear, and they start up all kinds of websites and blogs and YouTube channels to manipulate you on top of that. We are scared. Nuclear community sidelined in just transition debate, even as the industry subsidies flow. The town of Zion, Illinois. Every time I heard the word Xeon, I think of the disgusting sack of shit Xeon Light. An incredible scumbag Xeon Light with environmental progress. Michael Schellenberg's disaster public relation pro-nuclear firm. So the town of Zion, Illinois went into an economic spiral after they closed a nuclear plant. And I mean economical. The first thing they done was raise taxes through the roof to make up for the money they're going to lose from their disease factory. It was an economic boom for the town. Imagine putting a nuclear plant in your town. These are hemorrhaging radiation 24 hours a day. The plant stopped operating in '97. They still got all the fuel stored there. They have no income now. They were getting $19 million each year in taxes. And it once provided nearly disappeared even as the nuclear waste remains. It's typically stored on site and vented into the community. It's not Exelon that needs to bail out. It's the communities that were stupid enough to put nuclear power plants in it. After the Xeon plant closed, a town of 25,000 people lost more than half its taxes, forcing increases in taxes levied against the schools. The burden shift of taxes went up 50% immediately when he closed the nuclear plant. And every community has the same story, by the way, that were foolish enough or deceived into putting nuclear in their community. Property taxes spiraled out of control. The taxes being so high, the property value started crashing because nobody wanted to buy a house. It got to the point where 2-bedroom nice homes were going for $20,000 to $30,000. The whole problem is you're surrounded by disease factories. The contractors handling Xeon's decommissioning energy solutions said the lakefront would be ready for redevelopment. The state and tribal opposition scuttled to Yucca Mountain. No, Yucca Mountain was scuttled because it was on a fault line. They spent $20 billion on litigation. And that they were going to put air conditionings in it, the whole mountain, because the amount of storage in the mountain was based upon how much heat it can contain for 200 years. Apparently they don't give a shit what happens after 200 years, because the nuclear ain't going to dry up and go away after 200 years. Folks, stay on target, stay on topic. We're doing a huge amount of shows. Don't send people somewhere else. Don't distract people from the conversations if you can. But above all, don't send people somewhere else. I find that extremely offensive. And I'm not going to tolerate it. About 2.2 million pounds of nuclear waste is still stored on the lakeshore. Just a single pound of it, if everybody walked past it, it would kill everybody on the planet, a single pound of it. 2.2 million pounds is still splitting the atom into the environment every day, all day. This disgusting Kevin Camp from the Despicable Beyond Nuclear, from the Scum Beyond Nuclear, do you really think, Paul, that everybody on my site is not gullible and don't know any difference? Stick on the subject, or you can't do that, man. Kevin Camp, hang on. Kevin Camp, Beyond Nuclear, Helen Caldecott, the human trash machine. We cover around 40 to 60 stories a night, every night, 5 days a week, year after year here. This is Kevin Camp. I'm going to play Helen Caldicott after. Let me just bring that in. Stick to the subject, Paul. Come in saying all kinds of stuff, and I never call you gullible. When did I call you gullible? Why did you show up now after all these years? Where's Helen to? Here we go. Short version. Subject is the topics we're covering each day as we're covering. Stick to the topics. Don't come here and introduce your own topics and tell people to go somewhere else. I'm not going to say it again. This is Kevin Camps pretending the Fukushima fuel pools never melted down.
High-level radioactive waste storage pools, and incredibly, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the nuclear industry, has given short shrift to the safety risks of pools. So these are catastrophes waiting to happen. There's the slower motion boil-down scenario on the pools, but there's the fast-motion drain-down scenario. And one instance of that we can point to in the United States several times now over the decades is the near drop of heavy loads. And one of my favorites, because I'm from there, Southwest Michigan, is Palisades Atomic Reactor, October 2005, nearly dropped a load weighing 107 tons. It dangled over the pool for 2 days. They nearly overrode the emergency brake on the crane, which would have been catastrophic. You could drain these pools pretty much instantly. The waste would be on fire in a matter of hours. And the radioactivity releases would dwarf what we've seen at Fukushima Daiichi. There's no radiological containment around the pool.
Saying that, why, did Fukushima have radiological containments around the pool, you sack of shit? You disgusting sack of shit. You revolting piece of shit, Paul. Or Kevin Camps. Does that look like there's some containment around a fucking pool to anybody? That's the remains of reactor 3. Let me show you the remains of reactor 4.
The division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
And by the way, that's what Paul Mosby was claiming I was wrong about. He claimed the fuel pools were still intact. He started a big racket with me a couple of years back. There is no fuel pools. And I'm not going to tolerate people that are so fucking stupid they can't tell the difference. Obviously, if you can't tell the difference, there's something wrong with your head. Here's Helen Caldicott. You just heard Ernie Gunnison claiming he made the racks for the assemblies and the fuel pools, and where I put them to, he doesn't know the fuel pool is gone. Here's Helen Caldicott doing the same thing to you from beyond nuclear.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to...
So the building to the left is the fake one. The building to the right is the real one. Helen Caldicott's video is in the middle. He's asking her, does it really look like the building to the left?
begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
It doesn't. You can't actually do that. It looks like this, and it always will until it finally disintegrates. It'll never look like that. It can't look like that. Helen is murdering you. She's actually wrote 14 anti-nuclear books, all of them designed to lead you away from the truth. And this started because Kevin Camps, who claimed Fukushima fuel pools didn't melt down, the same as Arnie Gunnarsson and the same as Helen Caldicott done. When it's blatantly, idiotically obvious that it did melt down and detonate, and blow up. After a nuclear plant closes, there will be years of decommissioning, which can create good jobs. Decommission a nuke plant, you know what that means? That means you're going to be sucking in all the radiation from decades of releases. It means 90% of the site is actually too radioactive to be used, recycled. Despite the fact that's exactly what they're trying to do, is raise the limits so they can use it. And tin cans and knives and toys for your children to poison them. After a nuclear plant closes, there will be years of decommissioning, which can create good jobs. Never, under any circumstances, take a job at a decommissioning disease factory. A lot of these nuke plants are located in small communities because the people don't know any better, they're desperate, and the industry wants their fresh water or seawater coastlines. What would happen if we sent nuclear waste to space? This is from Dig. It has the same credibility as Helen Caldicott. It's garbage. Ah, yes, ultra-safe nuclear. Imagine what kind of scumbag you actually got to be to name your company ultra-safe nuclear. Remember when they first showed up quite a few years ago? I was really confusing the first time I seen the name. I was, what the hell are they talking about? Ultra-safe nuclear. And then I was like, holy shit, that's the name of the company. To brainwash you. Why don't you just call it Homer Simpson's ultra-safe nuclear? And so they got another useful idiot from the nuclear industry who's got 40 years of poisoning humanity and the species, signed on to their shit-for-brain Seattle ultra-safe nuclear. The nuclear industry in Seattle is disgusting, man. After all these years, there's only one way you can look at the nuclear industry. It's despicable. It's a despicable, coward industry that is a threat to all species worldwide. Oh yeah, France's electricity price is now at over 100 euros, 1,000 euros a megawatt. As more reactors close for the winter. Surrounded by farms. UK startup nuclear fusion gun will fire 1 billion G projectile at a fusion fuel pellet, which is tritium and deuterium. Well, mostly deuterium because it's very difficult to get their hands on tritium because it's not natural. Man-made tritium is very difficult to put together. Canada is an expert at can-do reactors at poisoning our planet. They actually had a massive event in Ontario, Lake Ontario, from the nuclear power plants in Canada. And so at the time, California's had accidents too, but their limits were 15 becquerels a liter for tritium. Canada's was 44,000. They had poisoned everybody in Ontario, and east of Ontario. The industry is just disgusting. And they do this on purpose on top of that. It's disgusting. UK startup nuclear fusion gun will fire. So what they're going to do is they're going to fire a 1 billion G projectile to cause the nuclear fusion. Of course, again, this is nonsense. These are pipe dreams. UK-based startup First Light Fusion is developing its prototype beak-friendly gun. Beak-friendly gun. The nuclear industry is incapable of acting like a human. You do realize that. DW put out a story, and he used Lyman from the Atomic Scientist site. And this piece of shit lies and lies and lies. And we've covered him so many times. He does the same thing on a lot of it, where he claims that Chernobyl is worse than Fukushima. Health risk. How does the Ukrainian plant compare with Chernobyl? People think about nuclear threats in the war in Ukraine. Most consider two possibilities. What would happen if an accident occurred at the Ukrainian nuclear plant or a nuclear weapon was deployed? Well, a nuclear weapon is a billionth of a second, whereas a nuclear meltdown could be forever emissions, constantly, forever and ever and ever. And a bomb might be 10 or 20 kilograms of fission products, while a nuclear reactor could be hundreds of tons. And if you hit the fuel pools, you're talking about decades. You're talking about tens of millions of pounds being released into the environment compared to 10 or 15 from a weapon. For the article, we talked to scumbag experts, the so-called experts, and the health impacts from Fukushima and Chernobyl disaster had on surrounding population. They actually claim Fukushima had no adverse effects, despite the fact that it's overwhelming how much effects we're talking about. We talked to experts about the health impact the Fukushima Chernobyl disaster had on surrounding populations. The 1986 Chernobyl disaster event for decades marked the worst nuclear accident in history. You can't call Chernobyl reactor the worst accident in history, and be honest. Fukushima lost 8 fuel pools with over 40 years of reactor cores in them. It lost 4 reactors. These were huge reactors compared to Chernobyl. Chernobyl was mostly graphite. Fukushima was pure uranium and plutonium fission products. And that's what they do. They come at you from 100,000 different directions with the same lies. And then even insult you by talking about Homer Simpson. 30 plant workers died in 3 months. Right? And so as soon as you hear that, these people should be locked up in an institute with a drip in their arm. A report published by Chernobyl Forum, which is UN. The scumbag degenerate monsters at UN. And Edwin Lyman, we must have covered at least 200 stories where he's quoted, and he does the same thing in every story, where he pretends Fukushima had no adverse effects whatsoever, and that Chernobyl was magically worse. Over and over and over, year after year, we covered that sack of shit. And then now he only talks about cancer. Apparently, according to Lyman and the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, nothing can happen to you on a cancer. The fact is, there's 1,800 illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses. Not just cancer. The claim is just cancer. And this is what he does through the whole article. They talk about cancer. Oh, there's not much cancer. I don't see any spike in cancer. It takes decades for the cancer to show up. And it doesn't in a nuclear accident. Ultimately corresponds to 30,000 or more cancer deaths, Leibman says, eventually Chernobyl. If you took him and tried to drag him into Fukushima, he'd tear the eyes out of your head. He would take a rock and try to bash your skull open. He would panic like you've never seen anybody panic before. He's what we call on this planet worthless human. He's a worthless human. He spends his entire life lying to the population about radiation. Decades of nothing but propaganda about radiation. Decades of nothing but garbage about radiation. The fundamental issue is whether one believes that low-level exposures will cause cancer. No! There's 1,800 illnesses, heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenic. Not just cancer, you disgusting maggot. You revolting maggot. I've never covered a story where he wasn't a revolting maggot. And the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists was created by the Manhattan Project. Scumbags. Let's move on. It ain't going to get any nicer if I stay talking about that disgusting parasite, Edwin Lyman. What a parasite. I give anything to meet him in person. He's going to defecate in his pants the minute he sees me. He knows who I am. At Constipated Party 27, nuclear power industry vies for a bigger role in decarbonizing the planet. For a bigger role. Last year there was 291 gigawatts of renewables and 0.4 gigawatts of nuclear. I think they'll vie for any role. 291 gigawatts of renewables is equal to 333 large nuclear power plants coming online in 12 months. It's almost equal to all current nuclear power plants that exist in renewables that came on in just 12 months. Nuclear doesn't have a right to exist. They have destroyed everybody's future and the species already. And they're nothing but parasites to humanity. Nuclear energy supporters, including politicians and activists. Activists don't support nuclear. Right? And the minute that you talk about, if you're not from the industry yourself, you're an activist. You're either left or right or far left or far right or extreme left, extreme right. You're not a human, you're an activist. It's revolting, isn't it? Sought to be to the Polish, the industry's spotty image on Wednesday using the Constipated Party 27 Climate Summit in Egypt, where they have repressed any activist, period, any humans that wanted to have a question, that atomic power offers a safe and cost-efficient way to decarbonize the world. If you decarbonize the world, everything disappears. Species can't survive. Humans can't survive without carbon. You can't have food without carbon. You can't have insects or birds or mammals or animals or trees or fungus or bacteria without carbon. Global warming is real. It's caused by endless nuclear fallout, pulsing energy at almost 186,000 miles per second every second, and that'll go on for millions of years. The emissions from gas, coal, oil, and coal don't have those attributes. Tight power supplies around the globe Well, and again, they're talking about Russia. NATO countries, United Nations countries put an embargo against Russia. That's 230 countries put embargoes. And that wasn't all of them, by no means. And they caused massive inflation in their own country. No inflation. They didn't embargo America when it flattened Iraq and Afghanistan on their false pretenses in Syria, and the whole story is horrific. We can't have a future with this military-industrial complex and nuclear industry on our planet. Their entire ideology is, how do we kill everything? All they know how is to kill everything. Everything is a nail to them. And then they recruit only mass murderers on top of that. I apologize for giving a shit about your future and your loved one's future. Obviously, I'm an insane person. I give a shit. The International Atomic Energy Agency, an intergovernmental organization, seeks to promote nuclear power. No, it's another subsidy of the United Nations. Like ERPA and NuScale and the ICPP or the IPCC. They got dozens of organizations dedicated to the nuclear industry to promote nuclear. Intergovernmental. They're not intergovernmental. They're the military-industrial complex. There are 195 militaries. And the military has no redeeming quality whatsoever. North Korea is not going to invade Canada, the United States, or anywhere else. But they got you believing that you got to shit your pants every time they say the word North Korea, so they can pretend they're human. Because that's what it's all about. It's all about them trying to recruit the evil to work in the industry and then stop the evil from committing suicide when it realizes how destructive and deadly it actually is. Seeks to promote nuclear, has opened an exhibit at the UN climate gathering of scumbag so-called leaders in Egypt. It's the first time doing so in the 27 years. They're just because they don't have a pavilion don't mean they're not pumped up all the time. You really think United Nations is going to have that and not pump them up? Again, Financial Post, what do you expect? It's the Financial Post. Their job is to destroy everybody's future too, so they can get some advertisement and make a paycheck. They all do it for a paycheck. A 4.9 quake hit eastern Japan. An M4.9. M4.9. Japan's scale is actually on a scale of 7. And they'll do this, we covered this, I don't know, well, at least 1,000 times, this scam. No damage reported. Now, this could be 3 seconds after the earthquake. They started typing this story, and they'll publish it saying there's no damage reported when it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to prove that kind of assertion. And typically, you'll hear about the damage about 10, 12 hours later if there's damage. They'll always shove that up there immediately with an earthquake. No nuclear power plants were hurt in the earthquake. No tsunami warnings were issued. No, because it was on land. They're such scum, eh? No abnormalities were reported at the Tokai No. 2 nuclear plant located in Ibaraki, northeast of Tokyo, which is a long way away from where the earthquake was. Quake was felt in northeastern Japan and Fukushima, where there's also nuclear plants, as well as Tokyo. Well, how is a small earthquake like 5 causing all this shaking across such a wide part of the country? It measured an upper 5 on Japan's scale of 7, which is an 8.28, which is an 8.3 earthquake on the Richter scale, yeah? M4.9 quake hits eastern Japan, no damage reported. The bullet train operations were suspended. The government set up a crisis management center at the Prime Minister's office. A crisis management center for a 4.9 or for an 8.2. Because they said upper 5, which is a 5.8. Multiplied by 1.428 to get your Richter scale. The government set up a crisis management center at the Prime Minister's office. You don't set up a crisis management center at the Prime Minister's office for a small earthquake, yeah? That's why they used a scale of 1 to 7 to confuse you. I'll give you an example of how disgusting they actually are. Just hang on. The agency cautioned press conference of areas that it felt a huge shake. A 4.9 is not a huge earthquake. There may be another earthquake within a week or so that could register the upper 5 on the intensity scale, but it already did, which is an 8.3 on the international scale. I'll show you one of their 6 earthquakes. And the average person has no concept of what I'm about to show them actually happened. But you decide yourselves. I'm sick of the lies. I'm not here because I'm bored. I'm here because I'm sick of the endless, relentless, horrific lies from this industry. It was a 6.7. Takes me a second, bear with me. All we ever get out of the nuclear industry, when you build a nuclear plant in your country, you're doomed. All you're going to do is destroy your country. They're extremely good at destroying everything they touch. Okay, here we go. Here's an earthquake from 2018. 2018, it was a 6.6 magnitude. Magnitude. 6.6. Which is they're claiming is the Richter scale. There's 22,000 people involved in the rescue for a 6.6 earthquake. Unfortunately, it was a 6.7 on Japan's scale of 7, with over 130 aftershocks. So a 6.7 is a 9.5. And do you know why I say it's a 9.5? Because when you look at the damage, look at the mountains. How they lost their payloads on all sides. Have you ever seen anything like that in your life? Have you ever seen mountains stripped all sides of their payloads? Does that look like a 6.6 to anybody? Or does that look like a 9.5? I've never seen anything else like it on the entire planet, where the mountains were actually stripped away. And those landslides you're seeing, it's hard to appreciate how much damage we're talking about. And on top of that, the reason they lied to you was because the Tomari nuclear power plant was just around 20-something kilometers away from ground zero. So the nuclear industry come out and just said, well, you can't tell the truth, you got to lie. And that's what they use in Taiwan, the same thing. They'll use the 1 to 7 scale. The entire purpose of it is to deceive you and trick you and manipulate you. Cabinet Office to issue new alerts of second major quake after first in the key zones. This was a drill recently, where you run away from your homes and you live in a basement of a school or a church or something, and you'll get nothing back. Putting fate in the nuclear industry is suicidal. Again, if the moment magnitude of the first earthquake is 8.0, how can you trust Japan with its legacy of disguising earthquakes by using their scale? How does that actually work? I can't do it. I'm not friggin' gullible. Nuclear Engineering International, their job is to stab you in the back. They're really good at stabbing you in the back too. They're professional stab you in the back guys. IAEA to observe sampling of seawater near the Fukushima Daiichi. Any idea how frustrating that actually is? First off, their job is to promote nuclear. I actually showed you that earlier. And second off, their job is to destroy your future, and we've showed you that over and over. I'll show you. This batshit, piece of shit nuclear industry, what it's already done to your oceans. This is research expeditions that I went on after Fukushima. The species to your left are permanently exterminated. They're permanently exterminated. You'll never take the pictures to your left again. That's the Pacific from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. We repeated that year after year for 6 years. The species never came back. Does that even matter? Does the world even give a shit? Does the species to your left matter? Is it acceptable to exterminate them and pretend that nuclear has some redeeming qualities? And do you know what? They refuse to acknowledge that this has happened. Not only that, when I came in from a major research expedition, they arrested me in the middle of the night and gave me 6 gag orders. 6. For 3.5 years, to silence me and to protect their assets. I never slowed down for a single time. I was under siege year after year after year. I was harassed and attacked by hundreds of pro-nuclear trolls. And all I'd done was went out and documented the coastline, and that made me the most evilest person in human history. And telling the story makes me the most evilest person in human history. For being honest and giving a shit, I've been attacked, and I mean attacked, I mean smeared constantly. Not just by the little prick that was here earlier. Does the species matter? Is nuclear more important than all those species? According to the nuclear industry, yes. They don't matter. So when your birds are flying along the coastline, instead of having food at their fingertips, they have nothing. No eco. This is the nursery. They wiped it out because of Fukushima nuclear meltdown. We repeated the research for 4 to 5 months a year, brutal research, horrific research, year after year, in the hopes that it would recover, and it didn't, which means it's permanently gone. And what do I got? I got 33 people on my show. 33 people. Bless your hearts. I got 37 votes. Are small modular reactors meant to destroy the implementation of cheap, efficient, renewable energy? Of course it is. They don't even exist. But renewables does. It's a worthless industry. The people in the nuclear industry are literally worthless people. Their job is to promote evil, promote demonic demons, promote an extinction event. And they'll kill you to keep their job. They'll kill you to get their paycheck every Friday. They'll kill everything on the planet so that their wives and children don't find out what they're actually like. And if they do, they'll kill them too. The world, this is your responsibility on this planet, is to fight for the species. They don't fight for themselves. It's your job. And if it's not your job, whose job is it? Send your hate mail to Dana, Durnford, blah, 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 blah. IAEA to observe sampling of seawater. In other words, get sick and die, particularly your children. Nuclear engineer would gladly cut your throat if they thought it was legal. They run around cutting every child's throat if it was actually legal. The nuclear industry wouldn't hesitate for a second. And the IAEA, another subsidy of the IAEA, this is what the UN does. They start up these subsidy companies, and they start up subsidy companies. So when they claimed it was an independent analytical laboratories for the measurement of environmental radioactivity, it's not. It's the IAEA. Established by the IAEA. The complete opposite of independence, yeah? What a revolting, worthless industry nuclear is. How can you deny the worthlessness of the nuclear industry? Romania $9 billion nuclear project gets U.S. funding. You never got $9 billion, you got $3 billion. Why don't you spend their own? America can't even build their own reactors. They're going to build it in shitland Romania. Right? They got someone in the key position, and his job is to promote nuclear. Just another worthless piece of shit on your planet. You can't have a future with these worthless sacks of shit. How much did they fuck me over last night? My video was 1 hour, 43 minutes, 55 seconds. After 12 hours, it jumps to 1 minute, 44 and 1 second. 6 seconds longer. Nobody else's videos does that. What do you think they're doing to my video when they make my videos longer? With 33 people, 35, 38 people on my show, I'm such a threat that I have to be censored off the entire planet, and that they got to make my videos longer. Counterpunch. Russia's forgotten nuclear disaster. I never forgot it. And claiming that that's the radioactive plume from Mayak is disturbing misrepresentation of the facts. Plumes might look like that for the first couple of hours, but like the wind doesn't blow consistent for that distance. It's going to change direction multiple times. That whole area is going to be one great big plume within 24 hours. But they show you this as if that's the plume. Well, off to a great start, lie to everybody immediately, right? Well, the nuclear industry won't let you be honest if you're part of that ideology. In the late 1940s, Russia released a great deal of radioactive waste into the waterways near Mayak. For the first decade, they were using prisoners. Prisoners' job was to take the radioactive fuel that wasn't used down to the Tetra River and dump it in the Tetra River. It's unbelievable evil what they actually done, because it's still in the river, still hemorrhaging atoms into the environment. And this goes all the way down to the Baltic Sea or the Black Sea. The southern Urals, they've had so many accidents at Mayak. These are catastrophic events each time. And where they reclaim the uranium, reclaim the plutonium for weapons on top of that. It covers the whole planet eventually. Hard-working, church-going, family-oriented, patriotic, and tough. And their lives are about to change forever because the government released the radiation into the environment by proxy. No containments around them back in those days. Around 10,000 people, mostly peasants, were forced out, leaving their pets and possessions behind. That's the normal when it comes to nuclear. You got to run away, leave your entire life savings and all your legacy and graveyards behind. There's nothing else on the planet that has these attributes. It's not 10,000, it's 10 million probably over time. Farmers are instructed to kill their cows, destroy their fertile farmland, and kill off their crops. Their livelihoods and way of lives are destroyed, and they weren't given a reason why. Nuclear is more important than everything. Nothing is allowed to exist unless nuclear says it can. And generations of inbreeding in the nuclear industry, the current generation, the entitled lot, are absolutely lunatics. They're so used to their history of their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents working and being monsters in the nuclear industry that they can't wait to get the job to be a monster too. Because they're going to be the best damn monsters the nuclear industry has ever seen. Just like their parents. Just like all their friends. Because they don't hang around with anybody any like-minded scum. Starting in the late 40s, Russia released a great deal of radioactive waste. A great deal. They dumped it constantly into the lakes, the streams, the rivers, the estuaries, and the environment. They burnt it in pits, for God's sakes. It's a great read if you want to read a great story. It's not perfect. Tons of bullshit there, but there's tons of facts there. 120 million curies of radioactive waste polluted the body of water. 120 million curies is 2,155 pounds. That's an awful lot for sure, but it's only a fraction of the real number. Their job is not to be honest. 160-ton cement lids. 320,000 pounds for a lid for stupid nuclear. That's going to be permanently radioactive. And when they go to decommission these sites, they'll take that lid, turn it into children's toys and bicycles handles and everything else to poison your children in increments over time. And then they'll use the old-fashioned measurements so they can confuse you, manipulate you, despite the fact it's 2022 and they can do the conversions. They won't. The idea is to make it impossible for you to figure out what really took place. Windscale fire happened on the 10th of October 1957. Mayak, the Keystone accident, Happened September 29th, 1957. So September 29th to October the 10th, in an 11-day, 12-day period, there was 2 nuclear major events going on your planet at the one time. And the cover-up at Windscale was horrific. They actually went to the theaters and kidnapped people at the back rows of theaters. Back in those days, the rich people sat in the front row. The very poor, if they were lucky, sat in the back. And in this case, if they were unlucky, they sat in the back. See, this is not a game. This is life and death for the future of all species. You ran out of time. It's time to gut up. It's time to have a conversation. It's time to make a stand. You have to make a stand. It's your responsibility. It's your watch. It's you're obligated. Your obligation. Try to, again, right? You can't look at a nuclear power plant unless it's surrounded by farms. Despite having a meltdown there, it's surrounded by farms, active farms. The food goes out to the supermarket, you buy the food, feed it to your children get these weird diseases and die. And it's your fault. You can't pin the blame on the nuclear industry. NuScale Power, leading the Small Modular Reactor Promise that doesn't exist. It actually doesn't exist. Our small modular reactors meant to destroy the implementation of cheap, efficient, clean, renewable energy. 86% says yes. Why the frig would anybody say no when it's obvious what's going on? Because that's what a moron does in the nuclear industry. He comes here and spams the shit out of me. Because they don't have anybody else really to pick on. Energy demand is global and growing, but at a cost to the environment. Of course it's a cost to the environment. If you can't deal with it, and this is disgusting maggots of seeking alpha, if you can't deal with it, get it out of the way, stupid. And their job is to sell uranium stocks. That's all they do is sell uranium stocks. It's seeking alpha. What a stupid name on top of that. Nuclear energy might be more frightening than actually dangerous. Small modular reactors hold promise, and NuScale Power is leading in the regulatory process. They barely got a design on paper. It's missing thousands of parts of the application. That's the only one that got approval, and there's nothing there to approve. It's not even complete. They've been at it for 50 years, and they still don't have one. Because it's stupid. Like Moltex here in Canada. It's stupid. They spend their whole life trying to murder you and destroy your future. And for a paycheck each week. That's the nuclear industry. And Lord, we are especially thankful for nuclear power, the clean and safe as energy source there is, except for solar, which is just a pipe dream. Homer Simpson. They're quoting Homer Simpson. That's twice tonight, 2 different stories. They're claiming 3 Mile Island is the most serious nuclear accident. Hey, what about Santa Susana? According to a 5-year study by a panel of independent scientists convened years after Santa Susana nuclear meltdown, The accident spit out up to 460 times the amount of radiation released during the 1979 meltdown at 3 Mile Island. Spit out. Right, so the editor had to put that in there just to frig you over. So here's a nuclear meltdown in America that released 460 times more radiation than 3 Mile Island. How often do you hear that story? There was enormous amount of cancer deaths, infant mortality rates, birds disappeared, mutations, allegations of pet deaths after the radiation exposure, supported by top university reanalysts of 3 Mile Island data. The official story is everybody was fine. Nothing but fear-mongering. They didn't evacuate people. The governor at the time said he didn't evacuate people because he didn't want panic. How many times have you heard that now? You know why you got 100 sirens around a nuclear power plant? So you can panic. You like this one. Ernie Gunnarsson, Lake Barrett. Wait for it. This always cracks me. You know, like how evil are the nuclear industry? Well, this will give you an idea. Testing of the evaporator begins at 3 Mile Island. They had a couple of million gallons of lethal water by the liter, and they boiled it off. Ernie Gunnarsson and Lake Barrett. Small amounts of radioactive element like tritium from a nuke. You don't get. First off, you can't isolate tritium. You can't claim that you filtered it. And if you did filter it, what did you do with the stuff you filtered? And you're talking about lethal doses by the liter. If you filter 1,000 liters, you can't get back on the site. But wait for it. The release effects on the average person living within 50 miles, 2 million people, will be less than the amount of radiation received from watching color television for a year. That's contempt on a whole different level. And this is the norm back in those days, was to blatantly treat you like the idiots. Less than the amount of radiation received from a year watching color television. People like this should be burned at the stake as a deterrent to the other scumbags that are willing to do it. They poisoned 2 million people and made fun of them by claiming it was like watching color television. I know it's hard to appreciate how evil what I'm talking about actually is, but it's absurdly evil. It's criminal beyond a whole different level. Poison 2 million people and claim that it was like watching color television. Renewable energy saw record year growth. Renewable energy had another year, 2021, of record growth. 290 gigawatts of new renewable energy capacity, most of it wind and solar, were installed, beating the previous record of last year, 2020, which was 260 gigawatts. which was equal to 300 nuclear plants. So in 2021, it was equal to 333. So equal, well, you know, in 48 months, you produce more renewables than all current nuclear power plant worldwide combined, including the ones that's been shut down. It's a stunning amount, you know, 550 gigawatts, which is equal to around 650 nuclear power plants in 48 months of renewable energies. And remember, this was during the scamdemic. I see David Icke got banned in the Netherlands, which is supposed to be one of the most free places to have a conversation. I've actually done presentations online to over 400 people at a time in the Netherlands, just that got together just to hear my presentation. I was restricted from flying down there because of gag orders I had against me. So we done it online. David Icke, which is supposed to be the most free place in the Dutch cabinet, banned renowned British conspiracy theorist David Icke, who David Icke actually, for the majority of his presentations, provides impeccable documentation. So if you now, because he talked about the World Economic Forum, that's what he banned him, because he claimed the World Economic Forum was evil. But if you let that happen, regardless of his ideology, if you ban him, then who's next? As if the nuclear industry doesn't tell lies. And yet they're allowed to go down there and say whatever they want. Moxie theaters to children to look at the uncertain future for humans after a nuclear meltdown. Radiation destroys the children first, right? NRA risks losing its reputation as a neutral nuclear watchdog body. The NRA, the non-regulatory agency, aka the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, who can only be described as the non-regulatory agency, was created after Fukushima. After. They don't have independence. Their job is to protect the degenerate scumbag nuclear industry. It doesn't have its reputation is degenerate scumbags. It has no redeeming quality whatsoever. Extending the legal life of nuclear reactors place safety at risk in Japan. Like, Japan is a earthquake fault line with over 1,000 major earthquakes each year that has 3,000-year history of massive tsunamis. And these reactors are always put exactly where the tsunami is going to come ashore. France is scrambling to keep the lights on as EDF just shut down 2 more reactors over huge flaws. Like, French waited until their reactors were old and decrepit and then said they're going to have a nuclear renaissance. And within a few months, over half their fleet was shut down because they're old, decrepit, and corroded, and were built at the same time by incompetent people, which applies to everybody in the nuclear industry. And yet, despite the endless, stupid fact that they don't have glaciers anymore, they don't have water running down through the rivers to cool the reactors, so in heat they have to shut off all of those reactors also. They're planning on building more reactors where they don't even have the water to run the reactors they have currently. If that's not stupid, what actually is? If that's not morons, what actually is? That's how evil the nuclear industry won't allow anything else to exist. Once it gets its fingers into your country, it seems to think that the only option it has now is to destroy everybody. Like a serial killer that's about to be uncovered murders their family because they don't want their family to be embarrassed, but doesn't murder themselves. They don't want their family to look them in the eyes and realize they're murderers, so they kill their families when they know the gig is up. That's the nuclear industry does to all the species and humanity. Look, can you get any more stupider than this? Bless their stupid hearts. I love their music, but look how fucking stupid they actually are. Producer Glenn Fricker plays Metallica Master of Puppets inside a nuclear reactor. Well, so what? How the fuck is that news? Why is that news? Well, because he's popular. And the children that listen to that kind of music might like nuclear, Dana, if we associate it together. Because we're from the nuclear industry, we gotta do stupid shit like that. Canadian producer, the recording engineer. Really? And you're playing inside a reactor and that's worthy of a news story? Did you do the world a favor and jump off the skyscraper like a good idiot? Because that's what you are. You're an idiot. And you know you're an idiot. When you're playing guitar inside a nuclear reactor, you're a worthless human. I don't give a fuck what kind of money you got. You're a worthless human. Why would you do that? The frig is going through your head you would do something like that? You think because you're playing inside a nuclear reactor you got the moral high ground? Canadian government recognizes nuclear as clean energy. We don't have a government in Canada. It was captured by the nuclear industries in the 70s. All we have is this idiot machine that is out there promoting small modular reactors that don't exist, taking memorandums of understanding so they don't look at anything else. It's not only stupid, it's dangerous and idiotic and murderous. Welcome to nuclear. Nuclear don't frustrate you, then you're not paying attention. Full-scale nuclear accident drill held at the Fukushima plant for the first time in 3 years. Full-scale. Run away. There's a nuclear release. Run away. When can we come back? Well, you can't. If you do, you're going to be poisoned. You got any idea how stupid, how absolutely stupid you got to be to participate in that? The 3-day drill, which kicked off Friday, saw a total of 4,200 people take part. 4,200 useful idiots. 4,200 people that had to get a paycheck. You can't do jack shit when there's a nuclear accident and you run away. But it shows you how dangerous they are. They actually got 4,200 people taking part in a nuclear meltdown drill. Yeah, tell all the people, whatever way the wind's blowing, tell them to go stand up over there. That's the nuclear industry. Why we should worry about nuclear winter. Again, where they're going to claim that a nuclear war will cause the Earth to go into an ice age. It doesn't work that way. We already had nuclear wars. It was called nuclear testing. It was equal to 36,000 Nagasaki bombs going off. That's a nuclear war. And all the planet's going to do is going to be full of radiation, pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second for the rest of our miserable existence. Because we're contaminated with the disease factory known as nuclear. You can't have a fucking future and nuclear. And everybody is making a fortune promoting nuclear. knows the truth, too stupid to get out of the way. Too gullible to be honest with themselves. Too evil to be honest with themselves. Rather murder everything on the planet so they get their paycheck on Friday. Yeah, I'm bitter. You'll be bitter too if you gotta listen to this shit. I have to, matter from when I wake up till I go to sleep every day. And every single story is full of propaganda. Every single story is full of lies. Every single story, Homer Simpson is stupid nuclear. That don't drive you crazy. What does? My apologies. Hang on. I gotta blow the honker. I got to be here as often as possible because nobody else is willing to have a conversation. No one else is willing to be honest and do the work, put the whole operation together, and get out and try to curb stomp this bunch of disease factories. And currently they're down there now with world leaders and 45,000 people and 3,000 journalists promote the UN's nuclear industry for the future. Yeah? And they want $125 trillion to fix climate change. UN. The military-industrial complex wants you to give them at least $4 trillion a year. It just doesn't even seem like it's real. It really doesn't. This can't be real. This can't really be happening. I tell myself that every day, all day long. When I'm sucking my thumb trying to sleep at night time, I'm saying the same thing. It's not real. Not real. This is not happening. Trying to understand Ontario's high cost, high risk, high emission electricity path. Trying to understand it. They're going to promote nuclear. Look at it. Like half an ice cream bucket turned upside down with a hole in it. This is their genius idea. This is supposed to appeal to the population. Is an ice cream bucket turned upside down, call it a small modular reactor. When you see stuff like that, you just want to give up hope for the planet. With this lot in charge. But this is their design. This is supposed to what? It doesn't even exist. Of course, it's on the Great Lakes, for all the fresh water being polluted by the endless emissions from these stupid small modular reactors. In the Darlington site, they're supposed to be decommissioned and over 60 years and released back to the public to... No, let's put more stupid nuclear there. This is on Ontario Power Generation. Their job is to promote nuclear and kill everything while they're doing it and pretend, go home, look in the mirror and say, I'm a good person. That's their job. They wake up every morning, they look in front of the mirror for 10 minutes and they say over and over and over, hundreds of times, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm better than everybody. I'm nuclear. That's what they do they get themselves psyched up before they have their coffee in the morning. So here's one single media saying, why are you talking about small modular reactors that don't exist when you have absurd amount alternative renewable energy that does and can be implemented in 12 months, not 20 years. There's a fraction of the cost with no toxicity. The most amazing thing about this picture is it's not situated in farmland. I'm totally blown away by that alone. Well, it's not in farmland? What the hell is going on? I bet you if you zoom back, it's in farmland. Cars we remember. Maritime engineer and nuclear power electric car charging. This was a guy who wrote a letter saying that we need nuclear power plants in the communities so we can charge our cars because wind and solar can't do it. And then the syndicated author that hosted the story licks their boots at the end of the story, grovels to the nuclear industry at the end of the story. The spent nuclear fuel is safely stored away from the public. What the hell are you talking about? Everything is vented into the environment. Everything is splitting the atom into the environment. Everything is destroying species constantly worldwide. You got 1,000 fuel pools hemorrhaging into the environment, and everything, all the fuel is safely stored away from the public. What kind of cuckoo fucking pills has your doctor got you on? You got to build the reactors in the community so they can power their electric cars. I almost called them up on the phone to yell at them. I was that disgusted with their story. I was that humiliated that somebody can grovel like that to the degenerate nuclear industry. Here, they're going to build a nuclear plane so that when you have a nuclear war, all the rich people can get on the nuclear plane and stay away from all the crazies on the ground being murdered by the nuclear industry. All the scum. You know how many times I've seen that story in the last month? Several hundred times. All the nuclear industry is quick to publish that out there. Utopia. We're stupid rules. On the dystopia beach. This is about a movie about Australia where the radioactive fallout has finally killed the majority of the planet. That's common, thanks to all the nuclear fuel pools hemorrhaging into our environments, all the dumping in our ocean, all the nuclear meltdowns they hit away. Like Santa Susana was 460 times more radiation. 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island, Dana, contaminated 2 million people. But don't worry, it's like watching color television for an extra year. They should be arrested and charged for that kind of propaganda. If they're dead and gone, then their children should be arrested and charged for having parents that evil. Following the Second World War, accumulating in a nuclear holocaust in North America, a deadly radioactive cloud. This was nuclear testing. See, in reality, they've done this to us already. They started the decline of all species, and they changed the sex ratio of all species around the entire planet. And it was the 70s was when cancer skyrocketed. And the only thing in common was radioactive fallout from the idiot nuclear war they call nuclear testing. Over 1 million square kilometers of just a Bikini Atoll is still too contaminated to habitat to live in. Think about how stupid this industry really is. It took all the beautiful oases, the French Polynesian islands, the Christmas Island, all these beautiful oases, and wrecked them with nuclear. Over and over and over and over and over and over, year after year after year after year, endless nuclear war. And all we see is all the species disappear and the entire planet heating up. Because it's pulsing energy, it's never going to go away, and they're constantly releasing it into the environment. And now they got the balls to have a conference in Egypt and promote more stupid nuclear as the solution when it's the problem in the first place. Indonesia, more research needed on natural radiation exposure. There's a spot there's other spots where they found high levels of natural radon and other things. There was no increases in diseases and cancer because it's natural. Your body treats it like homeostasis. It's acclimated to it through genetic superior selection. You don't bioaccumulate it. Unlike man-made radiation. No, the nuclear industry got his mitts into it down there. They have no future. France leaves the Brits to freeze. Brits got its own problems, so does France. France didn't leave Brits to freeze. France is just too stupid. What the problem was with Britain and France with their nuclear is they refused to build anything to replace it. And when it come time to replace it, we got nothing to replace it, therefore we're going to give nuclear an extension. We see that worldwide over and over and over, the same routine. But gas, oil, and coal, when they reached their end of their life, they magically got something to replace it. And when it comes to nuclear, nothing exists. They got all the monetary, all the authority, all the equipment they could ever want, and they won't fucking do it. Because that'll get rid of nuclear. And then you got this idiot, absolute idiot, pandering to the nuclear, which is unfortunately extremely powerful in France. EDF nuclear reactor has a test incident. Over half their fleet is shut down. Now they got another test incident. And it's pointless to expect them to tell you what's really going on. It's not going to happen. The very last people on the planet to tell you the truth is the nuclear industry. In fact, there's zero possibility they'll tell you the truth. That's one thing history has shown us unbelievably crystal clearly, is that the nuclear industry is incapable of uttering the truth. It's completely incapable. It has no concept of what reality is. Here we go. We made it through hell again. My apologies to everybody. There's 19 days of being sick. I give just about anything to have a normal day. And for the rest of my life, I'm never going to have a normal day. Because I talk about nuclear. Nuclear is the last thing you'd expect to find normal. The word normal in nuclear only exists when it talks about deceit and dishonesty and genocide and omnicide. That's normal for nuclear. But the truth doesn't exist. You got to go out and scratch it out of the lies and misrepresentation and deceit and dishonesty that they're going to throw at you constantly in every paragraph. How did the poll go tonight? Our stupid, idiotic, moron small modular reactors meant to destroy the implementation of clean, green, cheap, efficient, renewable energy. 87% of the people got it right. And the degenerate nuclear industry didn't. That was a good show tonight. It is what it is. Like, unfortunately, you can't expect me to wallow in all this excrement and come out at the end of the night and tell the story and just be a zombie. I apologize for having a personality. I apologize for giving a fuck about all of you people and your loved ones and all the species. It has tainted me to delve into the nuclear degenerate industry. It's nothing but a bunch of degenerates. Have we ever told a story about nuclear that had some redeeming qualities? No. Will we ever tell a story? Will we ever find a story where nuclear has pains of conscience? No. You're never going to find it. All you're going to find is constant, consistent propaganda and lies. And that's what I do here. And sometimes it doesn't go nice. I can't sit there and regurgitate all these lies and not show my contempt. I don't know if anybody else could do it. I can't imagine how anybody can not have the contempt show through. The endless lies, all day, every day, day in, day out, the relentless lies. The constant, evil, insidious, monstrous, relentless lies. I'm just saying, I wish we could have a normal conversation, but you can't, because How can you when every friggin' story is propaganda from the nuclear industry? Extremely crafted. Dana Santa says you can't drive without yelling. You can't drive. There's an honest statement. And my t-shirts are not showing up in my video. Whatever. I put out a new t-shirt tonight. I love nuclear. That's 93 million miles away. You have to go to my site to find it, unfortunately, because I can't control the creature that lives inside of me, because what's the point? You don't want to bottle up all these lies day in, day out that the nuclear industry is putting out. That'll kill you. All I can do is come out and speak very strongly against evil. I can't come out and sugarcoat evil, see? And I apologize that I can't. And that you can't either, nobody else can. Everybody has a great night, great day tomorrow. We're back again tomorrow night. Never stops. Oh, tomorrow night is the last show of the week. Thursday. And I'm not sure if we're going to be talking about Conference of Parties Day 5. Or Fukushima, or nuclear, or just mix it all together, I guess, do I? It's a shitload of conference of parties. I'll read everybody's comments later tonight. What do we got? 40 thumbs up, 42 thumbs up. Notice I got censored last night and tonight. That comes with the territory. There's nothing I can do about it. I still got to do the video, even though nobody watches it. Still got to do the video. Hi, everybody. You see, I'll read everything after. Let's call it a night. We're already at 100 hour and 50 minutes. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. And the nuclear industry, you're insane. Once you get a real job, why destroy humanity and all the species for a stupid paycheck? We'll see everybody in a few hours for the last show of the week. It's going to be a doozy. Have a great night, folks. Take care. If you made it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Doesn't really mean anything, only to me. So, and see everybody tomorrow night.